and today I am going to be talking to you a little bit about the epidermal layer of the skin. Now the first section of the skin that we'll be looking at is the stratum corneum, and the stratum corneum is this area right here. Now the stratum corneum is a top layer and it's composed of dead flattened keratinocytes. Its function is that it helps to retain moisture and keep unwanted substances out of the body. The next section we'll be looking at is the stratum lucidum, and it's this area right here. And the stratum lucidum is present in thicker epidermis like the palm and the sole. Its function is that it allows the skin to stretch. It also contains a protein that helps skin cells to degenerate. Now the next section we'll be looking at is the stratum granulosum, and the stratum granulosum is this area right here. Now the stratum granulosum contains keratinocytes moving towards the skin surface. Its function is that it contains lipids for a waterproof barrier. Now the next section we'll be looking at is the stratum spinosum, and the stratum spinosum is this area right here. And the stratum spinosum is the thickest part of the epidermis. Its function is that it contains newly formed keratinocytes and longer hand cells to fight infection. Now the last section we'll be looking at is the stratum basilae, and the stratum basilae is this area right here. Now the stratum basilae is the deepest layer where keratinocytes are actively dividing. Now we're going to be looking at the functions of the skin. Protection. The skin acts as a barrier that shields us from various threats such as dehydration, injury, microorganisms, and UV radiation. Next we have sensation. Covered in somatic sensory receptors, the skin allows us to perceive and recognize sensations such as touch, pressure, pain, and temperature. Next we have temperature regulation. Sweat gland release sweat onto the skin surface, which evaporates, helping to cool the body down. Immunity. Cells within the skin, such as Langerhans cells, phagocytic cells, and epidermal dendritic cells, contribute to the immune system by helping to destroy microorganisms. Excretion. The skin removes unwanted byproducts such as urea, uric acid, ammonia, and excess water through sweat glands. Absorption. The skin can absorb necessary substances such as nitrogen and oxygen. Now we are going to be looking at the homeostatic role of the skin. Now homeostasis is the ability of the body to maintain a stable internal environment. One of the ways the skin maintains homeostasis is by regulating body temperature through a process known as thermoregulation. Now the skin contains specialized cells known as thermoreceptors that detects temperature changes and sends signals to the brain to initiate appropriate responses. In response to heat or high temperature produced by exercise or sweat production from endocrine glands, increases evaporation of sweat from the skin surface, which helps to lower the body temperature. In contrast, when the body is too cold, vessels in the skin constricts, reducing blood to the skin surface, which helps to preserve the heat. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something from this presentation.
Hello everyone, I am Student Assistant Nurse Brown, and today I'll be speaking to you about the different types of burn and their impact on the skin's tissues and layers. Here I have a diagram that I'll be using to demonstrate this burn's impact on the skin. First, we will be having the first degree burn, which affects the epidermis, which consists of the epithelial tissues. Next, we have the second degree burn, which affects both the epidermis and dermis, and affects the connective tissues, which consists of the elastic fiber and collagen. Finally, we have the third degree burn, which affects the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis, which is also called the subcutaneous layer. It affects the adipose tissues, which is also called the fatty tissues. I hope that you have learned something from this presentation. Thank you.
So this is Latika Johnson, student nurse of Knox Community College. I'll be doing this presentation on the different types of sweat glands, apocrine and eccrine sweat glands. Now, what are sweat glands? Sweat glands are appendages of the integument. Now, there are some differences between both glands. Eccrine sweat glands. Eccrine sweat glands are the major sweat glands of the human body. They are found virtually in all skin and begins at birth. Eccrine sweat glands are driven by neutral as well as hormonal mechanisms. They serve as agents for temperature regulation in the body by secreting a clear fluid called sweat. Sweat which cools the surface of the skin. It also excreted unwanted substances by the way of sweating. Now let's look at apocrine sweat glands. Apocrine sweat glands, also referred to as odoriferous sweat glands. They are present from birth, but are only functional at puberty under the stimulation of sex hormones. Apocrine sweat glands are driven by adrenaline. They increase in times during times of emotional stress, sexual stimulation, anxiety, pain, and fright. Now let's look at some other difference. Eccrine sweat glands are much more numerous. They are most abundant on the palms, soles, and forehead. They are structurally simple, coiled tubular glands. Secretory part lies coiled in the dermis. Their ducts open in pores at the skin surface. Now, apocrine sweat glands. Apocrine sweat glands are most common in the armpit and anogenital region. They are larger than eccrine sweat glands. Their ducts empty into hair follicles. Apocrine sweat glands have same composition as normal sweat. However, it has fatty acid and protein, which make it more viscous. Apocrine sweat glands are odorless. However, when decomposed by bacteria on the skin, they produce an odor. Now, this is the end of our presentation, and these are our references. Thank you.